So today's the new year, and it's time for everybody to turn over a new leaf. And one of the things that a lot of people are going to do is, I've seen it the last couple of years, where they do this thing called dry January, where they decide that they're not going to drink because now there's all this scientific evidence, or at least it's been recently discovered, and there's all this discussion about health, and people are drinking less. I think drinking has dropped by like 5% in the United States. And so you sort of have these waves of public sentiment about things like that, where, obviously during COVID and the pandemic, everybody was drinking like fish. And now that the time has sort of passed and, people are seeing things differently, now there's sort of a trend towards not drinking, and it's health related, and I've never been a part of any of that because I'm not really a drinker. I very rarely drink, like maybe once. I think I had a half a glass last night, and before that it was weeks. I don't really like to drink. It doesn't make me feel good, but I worry about one of the things that I notice, which is that drinking allows people to come together and it lowers inhibitions. And so when you're worried about your health and you're worried about being able to, survive and live longer and all of these things, and you're not engaging in social interaction, I suspect you may be causing yourself a lot more harm by failing to drink, if that is one of the ways that you can lower your inhibitions and get together. Because I myself look at the way that I am at, and I'm like, I'm the kind of guy that should have wet January, like I got to make an effort, when I'm going on vacation to Europe, I'm like, I got to train myself to go to Italy so I can try all this great wine, and I got to kind of force myself to, have a little bit of tolerance and drink a little bit more, because I'm just a terrible drinker, and I've always have been. My issue is that I'm lonely in terms of, my profession, in terms of my social interaction. In fact, I'm going to go up to my office where there's nobody right now and work a couple hours. And I think that's dangerous too. So I think people need to think about that when they're turning over a new leaf. And I'm not talking about anybody who, has an issue with drinking. I'm talking about people who have an issue with not socializing.